Let's begin. Sitting comfortably. I imagine myself moving inwards as if into a cocoon, a very quiet place inside, not the usual place inside where I tend to analyze and worry and overthink. A much deeper place than that, as if giving myself permission to step outside the rhythm of day-to-day life with all its concerns and issues, and take a moment to focus on the self, a place very deep inside, almost like a sacred space, a sacred part of my own mind. And as I step into that space, that cocoon, it feels like everything is slowing down. An atmosphere of patience is flooding into that sacred space. And the mind that is so often racing can stop and catch its breath. Everything's slowing down. Until I feel very settled in that sacred space. And in the quiet, the silence, I can actually hear the self at quite a deep level. I can hear what I need, not what I want, what I, the soul, need. What I need for self-care, what I need to heal in that cocoon. It might be love. It might be forgiveness. It might be peace. It might be understanding. It might be simplicity or letting go. What do I need? And as I have the thought of what I need, that thought leads to the feeling of that quality, as if I'm becoming absorbed in that quality, letting it wrap around my being and wash through my mind. The moment I think love, I feel that quality. If I think peace, I feel that quality, as if I'm bathing in that quality. And just that moment of doing only that one thing, experiencing that quality. In that moment, I feel nurtured, restored. I feel a sense of well-being. Om Shanti. So warm welcome to all. Welcome, Hema. Just so you know, we are recording, but it's, for better or worse, just me. So, but if you do choose to share anything, your voice will be recorded, so you can always share on chat if that's more comfortable for you. But welcome. How is everyone doing? I know many of you joined the healing session last week, and we have a couple here with me physically as well. Hamid, not to worry, because each one is a one-off. They're not a sequence, so you'll be just fine. Is there anything that anyone wants to share with their thoughts about healing? And obviously we're talking about spiritual. This is inner fitness, where we take a physical term and apply it spiritually. So there's physical healing of the body, but what does that look like spiritually? So any thoughts anyone wants to share before I dive in? Great. You know, it's very interesting. Some call it a Freudian slip, but very often this term, and I've seen it so many times, I just saw it the other day, the term meditation is often mixed up or mistyped with a couple of other terms. One is medication, and the other is mediation. And whenever I see that, I think it's so accurate, because that's exactly, I think you're closer to the intention of meditation when you actually spell it medication or mediation. Because when you say meditation, it seems to become very heavy for people. You know, expectations, what's supposed to happen, it's very formal and intense. But actually what we're hoping for in that internal activity is medication and mediation. And these are two really important things in healing. When we talk about the physical example, healing, and again, this is physical, so we're not going to focus here, but when we say healing the self, and if we think of ourselves in a physical way as a body, we're talking about medicating the body, right? And when we talk in a physical sense, again, about healing with respect to others, healing relationships, we often think about mediation. So something that's going to help to reconcile. And certainly with spirituality, spiritual healing, those I think are really some of the top things that are going on, is medication and mediation. And the sense of what is a spiritual medication, medicine for the soul? What is spiritual medicine for the soul? And what am I trying to mediate? What am I trying to reconcile? And I think top of the list is the relationship with myself. We need a mediator in the relationship with ourselves. We've become sort of almost in conflict with ourselves. And very often, you know, in these major sagas, that represent conflict between good and evil, or whatever the case may be. It's actually memorials or symbolic references to what's going on inside of ourselves, this battle within the self, and how to mediate that conflict, resolve the disconnect with ourselves. This is the most pure meaning or definition of religion, is to reconnect. And this idea of, why when we say, okay, there's all these different religions in the world, but within each being, there's a very, very deep, deep sense of belief, which we may have abandoned, but that sense of belief that really aligns with what's most important to the self. And I want to reconnect. That's like reconnecting with the self, religio, to reconnect. So I'm trying to mediate the relationship with myself, and I also require medicine for the self spiritually. And in this practice of Raj Yoga, we have two main tools that we use. One that helps to mediate, and the other that helps to medicate. And when I say medicate, I don't mean like numb, which is very interesting. I just want to take a little diversion there, because I've always found this really weird. I don't know about you, but the idea that there's a broken bone in the body. Now, that's extremely painful to have a broken bone. And then we say, well, take some medicine to ease the pain. So we take some medicine, and what that medicine does is numb, because the bone is still broken. But now it's just I don't feel it. And I find that really bizarre. What's going on? So we've gotten to the point where medicine has almost not been connected anymore with healing, but just numbing, right? It addresses the symptoms. It doesn't actually get to the cause of the problem, the genesis. So obviously we're talking about a very deep form of medication, the true form of medication, which is to heal, not to numb. So the two tools that we use in Raj Yoga for healing, for this mediation and medication to truly heal, are knowledge or spiritual wisdom, and yoga, which is a deep connection to the truth, the understanding that God is truth. So this connection to God or the divine or the supreme soul, this is medicine for the self. And there's a myth some of you might have heard of. It's an ongoing saga called the Ramayana. How many have heard of the Ramayana? The Ramayana is a very long, long myth. And many of the stories that we see in popular movies, etc., and books are actually based on the ideas of the Ramayana. And in the Ramayana, we've got all sorts of things. It's all about liberation and got all sorts of things going on. But in one of the scenes, the army for good that's trying to liberate, then it's looking pretty bad for them. They're sort of all they're all being hit, and they seem to be mortally wounded, actually. And one of the members of the army, Hanuman, is given the task of getting the life-giving herb, the medicine that will save everybody. And there's a few other details, but this life-giving herb that he's asked to go get, and it's quite miraculous how he gets it. It's understood to be Man Manabhav, and that translates, keep your mind with me alone. This very beautiful relationship with the Supreme Soul, this divine being, which is like medicine for the soul. So these are the two tools that we use in spiritual healing, which is what I think Raj Yoga is. One is spiritual wisdom, which is going to mediate the relationship with myself. And the other is this very sweet, genuine link to the Supreme Soul, which is medicine for the soul. So starting with mediation, we've had this fractured relationship with ourselves. Basically, we've completely disconnected with ourselves. So we have to kind of reconnect. And it's very difficult because everywhere we're going to get information on the self, we're going to sources that are also disconnected from the self. So it's kind of a maze. We're kind of lost. You know, if you can imagine being in a maze and you go up to other people in the maze that are also stuck in the maze, we're just going to help each other to get lost. So it gets very, very tricky. So the spiritual wisdom that's going to help me to reconnect with the self. And the Raj Yoga course actually begins with the question, who am I? And the answer to that we call spiritual wisdom. Who am I? And how we answer that question can actually make me become more unhealthy or more healthy. Take me into dis-ease or into ease, how I answer that question. And the answers to that question we know boil down to two categories. So, for the sake of everyone listening now, because we can never review this too many times. What is one way let me make it easy for you. One way we can answer the question, who am I, which will make me more unhealthy. Silence. Someone has to speak because we're recording, so it's going to be just them staring at me. So what is a way that we might answer that question that actually is quite damaging to the self? And what does that damage or unhealthy look like? I know we talked about that last week. I'm going to guess that you are reflecting on it, even though you may not be speaking, which is fine. Oh, go ahead. Okay, I'm going to see what Hema has to say, and then we'll share Nora's answer. Hema, go ahead.
So it would feel like more painful, more hurting, and more weakened, right?
So what kind of answers to that question would lead to those kinds of feelings?
The feeling would be of a pain.
So
and sorrow and
right. So the physical body. Okay. So connecting the two answers together.
Yeah. So meaning like when I think that I am a soul, body, it even more pain, right? Because it's not my true identity actually.
Yeah. It isn't apparent. We can go down that path for quite a while before the pain actually kicks in. You know, so the example that Nora was giving, which I'm sure she doesn't have, but it's related to the role, one of the roles she plays, she was saying is, I'm a really good nurse. So I can go along for quite a while thinking I'm a really good nurse until one day a doctor that she might be working with looks at her and says, what are you doing? Didn't you go to nursing school? Like, what are you doing? And that sense that, but that's who I am. I'm a really good nurse. And now it's being brought into question by someone who is an authority, a doctor. How will one feel? Could feel quite crushed. I remember this is quite common in dance because dancers really identify with being a dancer. They throw their whole, because you have to. You can't do it halfway. That's why, as you look at me, I'm not a dancer. Because you have to throw every ounce of your being and life into it. These souls practice for hours on it. It's everything. It's everything. It's their whole life. So they're completely committed. They throw themselves fully into the identity. I am a dancer. They even walk and talk a certain way. And, meeting beautiful souls that express themselves beautifully through the body, right? Really lovely dancers. But if they do a performance, and they can have, 200 performances where they get, beautiful write-ups in the newspaper, beautiful reviews. And then there could just be, and for whatever reason, there could be just one write-up where they are criticized and they're crushed. Absolutely crushed. They're stunning dancers, but that one write-up had so much power and created so much pain. We were trying to figure out how cyberbullying works the other day. It seems so amazing because it's quite an issue. We know that some young people are even taking their lives. What is going on? And this is the power of that physical eye. It becomes quite subtle. It has tremendous power, and it's very, very fragile. It can be crushed in a moment, right? So it's really not a strong or healthy sense of self. And I know that all of you listening know this, but we also know, again, this is spiritual wisdom, we also know there's a gap between knowing something and actually experiencing it. So, luckily, this is a very loyal indicator that if in any time I feel pain or insulted or hurt or off or uneasy or that sort of self-inflicted kind of pain, this is a very loyal indicator that I got wrapped up in that physical eye, which can be very, very subtle. It can even show up in spiritual clothes. It's so subtle. I got very wrapped up in that. So this is what pain, even physical pain, was meant to be, an indicator that I'm out of alignment. So when the body experiences physical pain, it means you're not using the body in correct alignment. And the pain is a wonderful indicator that something's off. Something needs to be addressed. It's not meant to be numbed. It's meant to be taken as a very loyal signal that something needs to be looked at. But very often, even physically, souls will either numb the pain or never get to the source of the pain. So we call it symptom treatment. Never actually look at what the pain is trying to point to. And this can happen spiritually too. So I might be experiencing, that sort of disheartenment or that uneasiness or that insult, or sometimes it's just that crushing feeling, storms, whatever we call it. And am I using that pain in a really useful way as a loyal indicator that I'm out of alignment, right? Or do I misdiagnose the pain or even try to numb it? So what does numbing spiritual pain look like? Running away is very much top of the list. We have students in the spiritual study that like to take holidays. So really just kind of ignoring. So this is starting to get to misdiagnose too, right? That, Nora, you are the cause of my pain. Can I fix you? Or Jima, sorry, there are people here with me. Jima, you are the cause of my pain. If you would only sit on that side of the room, I would be pain-free. So these are very simple examples, very silly ones, but it tends to be the way we operate, right? We try to numb or misdiagnose. And yet that pain is trying to point to something that I am not connected to who I am. I have connected to a false sense of self. And the false sense of self, it's as if it's painted with targets, just covered with targets. Any one can be hit at any moment to cause pain. So I want to mediate, I want to use wisdom, spiritual wisdom, to reconnect with the true sense of self so that I become liberated from that pain. And that true sense of self, I am a soul. It frees me from that external validation, from being dependent on external approval or expectations or desires or attachments, all of those things that are causing sorrow. So this being anchored, and some say, well, how does that work? When I genuinely experience myself to be a soul and understand the story of me, the soul. I found physical, for lack of better word, physical counseling fascinating, because so much of it is about trying to understand. Actually, psyche means soul. So psyche in psychology actually means soul. It was always intended to be an understanding of the soul. But we start to go into the story of this life and what happened and who did what. And if that needs to happen, it's okay. Sometimes it does, to even get to a place where I can start the spiritual journey. So it's okay. But it's fascinating if I can get to that place where I can start to look at myself as a soul, because the story of me, the soul, is far deeper than the story, the very short story of Judy, of this physical sort of image. The story of me, the soul, is quite magical. And if I can, part of reconnecting to myself as a soul is to understand my story as a soul. And the story is very simple. I mean, we could go through the details, but we'd be here for a very long time. But in essence, the story is very simple, and it's the same for every soul. So not only am I going to understand myself, but I'll actually be able to understand others, which is really lovely. So you can start to be a mediator for others, creating a presence of understanding rather than judgment. So what is the story of every soul? Really simple. We had it all, we lost it all, and we get it all back. That's the story. So I start off, to have it all means I start off in a very pure place with this very pure, beautiful character. We like to think of it like a butterfly, very pure, very sweet, very peaceful, very loving, very kind, very powerful. That is benevolent. We start this way. And then as we journey through time, and Raj Yoga does include the idea of rebirth, but as I journey through time, I start to basically lose that power to sustain that true sense of self. I start to think I am the body. I start to have a very limited sense of myself and connect to that story of the limited sense of self. So I and my start to change, and I lose that purity, that pure self. And that goes on for a while until I reach, thank goodness, a limit where it's like, I start to feel I miss myself, which is an odd question because it's like, I'm here. What's going on? What I'm missing is my pure self. I can never be divorced from myself. I am always there. But what I'm actually missing is my pure self, that authenticity, that truth, that realness. I'm missing that. And so I start to begin that journey of returning to the pure self. This is the story of every soul. It's really an incredible story. And so that's all I need to know. So if I'm in a situation and I'm getting angry or irritated or impatient, we do a couple of things. We either get very hard on ourselves, or we start to rationalize, which means point fingers outside. Well, I have to get angry because this person is acting ridiculous, or they're doing this, or whatever. But, we can cut through all of that waste of time, either blaming others or blaming ourselves. We can remove the concept of blame and replace it with understanding. I know why I'm getting angry. It's because I lost myself. I disconnected to my pure self. I thought I was this body. That's the only reason I'm getting angry. It's got nothing to do with anyone else. And it's completely understandable, when one disconnects with themselves. So there's compassion and understanding, and I know what I need to do. I need to get busy using my thoughts, not to waste them on blaming others or myself. I need to use my thoughts to heal the self, to start to reconnect. Who am I? I am a soul and experiencing the qualities of the self, that eternal sense of self, the pure me. I need to get busy doing that. And it takes time. We have such a deep habit of exploding or imploding. It's as if it's a knee-jerk reaction. It really takes time to stop doing that. The imploding looks like storms within, and exploding is a storm without. But just this understanding, this training the self. Okay, I'm going off. I'm going off. Immediately remember, I am a soul, and give yourself time to experience the pure self, to understand, okay, I lost myself. So that mediation, that mediating the relationship with myself using spiritual wisdom is a huge skill to develop. We say that we call it spinning, this tool of self-realization really generates, spiritual wisdom really helps us to develop a very healthy way of responding to the self, of helping the self. And the other is medication, the medicine of man above, remembering God. And obviously this is going to look a certain way for it to be medication, medicine. And why is it medicine, right? So with respect to spiritual wisdom, I'm trying to remind myself of how I was a pure being and I lost that through disconnecting with myself. And when I connect to the Supreme Soul who is ever pure, it's like putting myself in a very healthy environment. I often think of silence as God's hospital or God's operating room. And I've heard so many people say on different occasions, they'll kind of wake up one day and it's not to disrespect anyone, but that feeling of, I feel like I'm in toxic company. Now, it turns out the most toxic company is our own thoughts and attitudes, quite frankly, not other people. But that feeling that the importance of company is actually understood. We do understand that. And the feeling of, I want to put myself in very healthy company, because we innately understand, intuitively understand that we are colored by company, and that healthy company seems to bring out the healthy me, and very quietly remove the unhealthy me. It seems to be a very magical process of being in healthy company. So the healthiest company the soul can get is the Supreme Soul, who is ever healthy, ever healthy. God never gets sick. God never calls a sick day. He's never off. He's never unhappy. He's never in pain. Constantly in a healthy state, which means constantly in a pure state, constantly in that fully blossomed, beautiful state. What the soul is like when it's in its healthy state is so beautiful. So constantly in that state, and it's magical. When I put myself in that soul's company, it's like I start to become the same. It really starts to nurture the healthy side of me, and to gently dissolve the unhealthy, as if healing the unhealthy bits so that they're less likely to come up again. And so between these two, using spiritual wisdom, so I don't keep punishing the self, I understand the self, and using, because that's what happens in conflicted relationships, is they just try to punish each other. And then using that medicine of remembering God to really heal the self, to nurture what is healthy in the soul. I'm going to stop there before we go into reflection and see if there's anything anyone wants to say or ask. Okay. Sorry.
Judy Ben?
Yes, Emma.
Yes, just something like I would like to share that healing is so important, especially in relationship as well, because I mean, there are so many relationship right now. They've been in a pain. They did not know how to heal those relationship or heal the wound which we thought like was created by someone else. Over a period of time it becomes cancerous. So I mean, meditation, as we say, like it's a medication and also mediation. It is so critical at this point of time that there is no any other way to heal ourselves and heal relationship with everyone. Meaning like not only individual, but relationship with nature and all. That is the only can do that, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
time, it's a need of a time that I mean we all have to get into that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously I'm biased. I agree with you. It is a need, and a huge part of healing relationship, when we say healing, is that I am going to come to it in a healthier state. And I appreciate that you weren't just talking about other people, other souls, but also spirit, all resources, nature, that we have very unhealthy ways of dealing with resources and with people. And the unhealthiness is actually originating from within the self. So again, if I heal that relationship with the self, all other relationships depend on that one relationship. So if that relationship isn't healthy, the other relationships won't be. So when I heal the relationship with the self through a healthy relationship with God, then I start to have healthy relationships with others and with resources as well, the material world. Yeah.
And also there is a kind of a, I can say it's a kind of a myth that time will heal. If I want time to be my teacher, it won't help, because it's the one of the reason, like my wound gets so sore, and this time it becomes more like a cancerous. So like every single small thing is hurting me. Right? So it's just the sign that, I mean, where do I stand? Because I was waiting for time to heal it. Then over a period of time, it really become worse and worse and worse. And in there are another wound. It's just not one wound.
Yeah, so absolutely. Really good point. It's an interesting balance of being patient and proactive. And we have a very interesting concept of patience. Sometimes I know people are disturbed when we say be patient. They think what we're saying is don't do anything. And what we discover in spirituality is that we need to be patient because we are doing something. And the method that we are employing, we have to trust. We definitely, though, have to do something. We have to use a method. But that method is quite unique and quite incognito, so that if I'm expecting it to work the way the old method would, I'm going to be very disappointed. So I have to respect the incognito and unique nature of what I'm doing, but I'm definitely doing something, right? So I'm using time in a very worthwhile or proactive way. Patient doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. It actually means that I am using the method and trusting the method, giving the method time to work. But it's not that I'm doing nothing. And I think Nora is going to share something.
I was wondering if you could share, I don't know what's going to come into your intellect, but I've been thinking a lot lately about endurance. And maybe if you want to share briefly about the Pink Panther example, but in relation to completion of healing, in terms of, it's interesting what Hema was talking about. It's like a re-injury, but you don't give yourself time for that complete healing, which is the whole point of Raja Yoga. But to be able to sustain that journey, that's what I was thinking about. This, to keep going.
This is tangentially connected to Pink Panther, so if we have time, I will share that at the end. But it's a very interesting, I don't know whether the word myth or misunderstanding, I'm not sure what word to use, but with elite athletes who have longevity or do long distance pursuits, so pursuits that are over a long period of time that are going to require endurance, what they have figured out or been forced to figure out is that one of the most critical aspects of their training is recovery. And most do not like this concept of recovery because they don't feel like they don't feel that anything's going on. But the ones that actually make it have understood the concept of recovery. So they're not kind of just push. Recovery is huge. Learning how to sustain the self over a long period of time is critical. And one way you could sort of think of it is, eating something. Imagine just constantly shoving food in your mouth and giving no time to chew it or swallow it or digest it. You are going to get overwhelmed. And sometimes we just go. I know some people in the fitness field who just go hard all the time, 7 days, even though it's so, all the medical, everyone, all the experts in the field say that is a bad idea. To do high intensity training, thinking I'll get stronger faster. To do high intensity training 7 days a week is a recipe for disaster. no matter how good you are. It is a recipe for disaster. So the smart ones do 2 to 3 days of high intensity training, mix it up with a different discipline, and always have recovery days. And very simple concepts of recovery: resting, drinking water, eating right, resting the body. So this is so huge, and I enjoyed. I don't have to give details. We had a very beautiful sharing this morning, and the interviewer kept sort of pounding the one being interviewed with the same kinds of questions. It was a very sweet interview, and I enjoyed her response because she kept saying her answer was always because they say, "Oh man, you had this really intense presence around you all day." She would say, "Well, actually, no, that's not true. I had these moments where I could be with myself, I could digest, I could, if you will, recover, I could assimilate what I had been exposed to, allow it to integrate, allow it to digest." And sometimes I find, particularly at this time when there's so much available online, souls literally sit and watch online a huge amount of information they expose themselves to, and there's absolutely no time to digest it or do anything with it. They kind of bathing in it, but it's like they start to drown in it, right? There's no making it their own. There's no recovery. There's no, and that's so important. And actually, it's becoming healthy on many levels. Not just maybe spiritually, but physically. Yeah. So this idea of, for endurance, there's a rhythm to it. And I need to have those moments when I stop and assess. It's a very healthy moment. Stop and assess. What am I doing? What have I learned? How have I assimilated? Have I given it time to just digest? Or am I just go, 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 go? And you will, if you are keen to do the long haul, which means you authentically take this spirituality, this wisdom into yourself, not superficially, but authentically, because you actually notice for the ones who do physically go hard, they look really strong. There was a wonderful story of one soul, a CrossFit athlete, looks crazy strong. Had really, what you run into is overuse injuries. And they looked super strong, but it turned out they had a very, very serious injury. It was actually a fractured rib. No idea. Kept going until it got acute. Couldn't even lift her suit, had to get home to heal. Couldn't even lift the suitcase out. It was crazy. But what was funny about this story, she literally, really severely fractured. She couldn't lift her suitcase up to the carry-on because it was so painful. But because she looked so strong, no one would help her. They couldn't believe that she couldn't lift it up. She looked so strong, but they didn't know what was going on underneath. And that can happen to us. I look like I'm spiritually really going places. I can talk the knowledge forward and backward because I've heard so much stuff, and I'm just, but what I have to stop, what's actually gone on inside of myself? Because I'm leading to a very serious injury called self-deception. And that could cut my journey short in a second. Many souls leave because that's going on for a while, and they had no idea until they suffer a real injury. So I'm constantly having to stop and assess the authenticity of what I'm doing. That to me leads to endurance. Those moments, we call them recovery, which are actually discovery or uncovering, looking, checking, what am I actually doing? And authenticity is super important right now. So all of the information we have available is wonderful, but it's completely in my hands to do that checking over the authenticity, because then I can do the long haul, because I'm taking that time to to really take it in, really work with it, make it real in myself. And that will help me to keep going. We use the term intoxication. That intoxication comes through authenticity. That enthusiasm comes through authenticity. You know, I've seen souls who like, okay, I repeat to myself like a script. Oh, I'm a soul, I'm wonderful, I'm great. They're just kind of, it's a script, but it's not real. So it's kind of a contrived authenticity. And endurance means overcoming obstacles and challenges. Because it's not the real, there isn't actually the power to overcome challenges. And so it has to be real, right? Not borrowing someone else's intoxication. It has to be my own enthusiasm. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay. We're into OT as opposed to OR. We should probably go into OR. The operating room. Let's go into OR, shall we? So a little bit, and the silence is so soothing for the soul. We can, it's like a balm. If we're talking balmy, it is like a soothing balm for the soul. And that's why we say it's God's operating room, because God, the surgeon, is found in that silence. So I go there, and to be so patient. Again, it's not that I'm doing nothing, but it's quite quiet and incognito what I'm doing. And it doesn't have show, so it might take time, but I stick with it. I trust it. I keep doing it. And very slowly I have real results, not faked results, but real ones. So sitting quietly, taking my attention inwards, that if I can step outside of my usual thoughts, move through the clutter that's often in my own mind, I might discover that at the very back of my mind, there's a special doorway. And if I walk through, I enter into this space that's quiet, peaceful, comforting, like a sanctuary. There are no thoughts of the physical world here, not even aware of myself in a physical way. Just experiencing that calm space. And this is God's world, the sanctuary. God is not entangled in day-to-day physical life. That soul is in a realm that is sacred, peaceful, filled with pure feelings, calm. And just to enter that realm, as if in the operating room, waiting for the surgeon to arrive, I already feel a sense of healing, that I'm in a healthy space. How the vibrations of peace cool down the soul, calm down the soul. And I just wait, however long, no rush, until I feel the presence of the eternal surgeon, the one doctor who can heal souls, God. He does not come in a physical body. He is a tiny spark of living energy like me. But I can sense the fragrance of his presence. It's not a trace of judgment. His presence as if embracing me, welcoming me, recognizing me. And so the healing begins. The medicine of being in the presence of the eternal surgeon, the one who is ever healthy, always real. Om Shanti. Thank you. I know we started a little late and we're ending a little late. Apologies. I have no idea what the theme is next week. But there is a theme next week. And we will discover together what it is. So until then, thank you for joining, and we will see you, if not during the week, we will see you in a week's time. Om Shanti. Bye.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Sorry? Stability next week.
Excellent.